Welcome to the Peak of Possibility podcast, brought to you by Peak Path Health. If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Remember, if you or someone you care about is facing challenges, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to support you on your journey to health and wellness. Welcome to the show. Today we have Jenna Foster, who is a good friend of mine, a woman in recovery, a person who works in the behavioral health field, and just an inspiration. And I'm so happy that you're here.
Oh, thanks, friend. I'm happy to be here.
And we're twinning.
We are twinning. Blazer sisters.
I swear we didn't call each other before the episode. So, I guess, tell us how long you've been sober.
My sobriety date is May 26th of 2014. So I have about 11 and a half years sober.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does it ever feel like an alternate reality?
Absolutely. I actually said that to someone yesterday on the phone. I'm also a mom, and I had parent-teacher conferences, and I was like sitting in the parking lot on the phone with someone, and I said, I still to this day sometimes feel like, am I allowed to be doing this?
Yeah.
Like I'm allowed here.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, like I'm in charge of these humans. And it's like, yeah, it's very much so an alternate reality.
Yeah.
Like for so many reasons, because it's not just about like how much time of being sober, but it's like what life looks like today, like versus like what we were doing.
Right.
You know?
Right. It is. It's crazy. I was having the same conversation yesterday
Yeah.
with RJ and Rachel.
Right.
So where are you from?
I grew up in Agora Hills in California.
Cali girl.
That's
Okay.
right. Can you tell?
Yes, you look so California. So where did you where did it all begin?
It all began in an alcoholic home. You know, I was born into an alcoholic home, and there's a lot that transpired in like those early years and childhood and my teenage years. And, yeah.
What were your parents both alcoholics?
So no, my mother is an alcoholic and addict, and my father, he's not one of us. In fact, it's kind of frustrating because he was a touring musician for a long time. And now in our life today, we exchange a lot of stories. And he'll tell me stories about like being on tour and doing lots of cocaine and then being like, okay, well, now it's time to go home. And I look at him and I'm like, what? Okay, you could just do that? And he's like, yeah.
Wow.
And we joke about it all the time. You know what I mean? But he does work a different type of 12-step program, which I'm super grateful for because it helped heal our relationship in a lot of ways.
When did he start doing that?
He started going to like support for loved ones that are struggling, you know, early on in my childhood. I think I was either 9 or 10 years old the first time he took me to like an Alateen meeting. And he kind of like dabbled around in those support rooms for a minute, and then he stepped out of them. And I know he shares often about that, like it was later when we were in a period like later in life. I was like 18 years old, and he and I were not speaking. And he was in a super dark place of like, you know, one of my children won't speak to me. The other child is like struggling in high school with like behavioral issues and substance use, like at a very young age. And I already lost the love of my life to addiction and alcoholism, and then going through a divorce. And he was in a really dark period and was like, maybe I'll try this again. And he started working a program like really hard, in addition with probably some other outside help, you know, for depression. And so I would say like when I was like 18 or 19 is when he went back to that and like really threw himself into it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you said he was a musician. Like, what did that look like? Was he traveling all the time? Was he present? Was he?
Yeah. So he was like off and on touring until I was about 9 years old.
Wow.
And so during those periods, my mother worked full time, shockingly, like until she didn't and couldn't.
What did she do?
She was a nurse. Yeah. which is like really convenient for someone who loves pills too,
Right.
you know? And so we also had live-in nannies and live-in au pairs that were in our home until I was about 9 years old. And so at that point, you know, I know part of what happened and transpired was that like some of those nannies and au pairs, you know, they got to a point of like calling him while he's like off on the road and being like, we can't manage this situation at home. Like, what's going on with your wife is like something concerning,
Right.
you know? And so at that point, he put off some of the touring and came home to like really focus on his family. And what that looked like was trying to help his wife get treatment. And, you know, she would be in these moments with him and other family members and friends that kind of would like intervene on her of like, okay, I'll get help. But then she would not when it came down to it, which like you and I know how that goes, right? And so what it looked like in that like next couple of years from the time I was like 9 till about 11 or 12 was like just this constant chaos in our home because he was trying to help her. He was growing angry and frustrated, not really being equipped with the tools to take care of that. And, you know, he like also like essentially gave up his lifelong dream
Of being a musician.
Yeah, to come home to like try to help his wife get sober. And like you and I know, not everyone is equipped to do that, you know? And it just created a lot of chaos. There was a lot of nights of him throwing my brother and I in the car, and we'd go stay at a motel near our school for the night because it was just too chaotic in the home or too toxic between the two of them.
Right.
Because she was either high or drunk, and he's trying to help her. He can't. He's getting frustrated. So then, like, the chaos between them, you know, would grow too intense that he'd throw us in the car at times, and we'd go stay. I always say it's like this good night in Calabasas, and to this day I drive by it and I'm like, it's funny how like little things like that, people would have no idea, but it's
But
like
you'll never forget it.
Never. And I drive by that often, you know.
When did you know that like something was off with mom? And like, do you remember like what you were thinking or what was going through your head or what you thought was going on? I mean, you were only 9. So.
Yeah, so I was 9 years old, and which is a trip for me now. It holds a different weight with me today than it did even 5 years ago because I have a 9-year-old son. And I look at him and I'm like, that's wild, you know, where I actually have this different understanding and bandwidth of an understanding that was like not normal for children to be experiencing. And it's interesting how like through time sober, through healing, you know, and through like other life experiences, we begin to have these different experiences with our past.
Right.
You know,
a new perspective as well, right?
Totally. And it's something that I kind of love too. It's like that idea that like growing and healing like never stops if we're open to the growth, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was 9 years old and my dad was going away on a trip, and I remember him showing me where the alcohol bottles were kept in our house. And he was like, he marked one of them with a Sharpie, and he basically like asked me to come back and mark it in a week, which now, again, looking back, like that's not something a 9-year-old should be doing or responsible for.
Right.
But that's when I had like some like tangible idea that something was wrong. You know, I also, prior to that, I had a few instances of when my dad was gone and on the road, walking into my mom's bedroom and finding her passed out on the floor. And like at one of them, she was foaming out of the mouth. And I went running downstairs to the au pair and I was like, my mom's dead. And I truly believed that, you know, and it's wild because there's a lot of my childhood that I consciously or subconsciously like blacked out, right? Like I know there's like terms for that, you know, in the psychological and clinical world, like disassociation. And it's wild how like I now understand that like that can happen in a way that you don't even know you're doing it, right? Like almost for protection.
Yeah, like your brain and your nervous system does something for you to
for
keep you
sure.
safe.
And so there's a lot of moments throughout my childhood that like I think I've uncovered a lot at this point. I've done a lot of like really good trauma work that has like happened over time. But there's also moments that are so vivid. And like that particular day of finding my mom foaming out of the mouth at that age is one that like, it's like a visceral reaction.
Right.
Because I can picture it, I can feel it, it lives within me, you know? And for a long time, because I didn't talk about it, it lived within me in a way that didn't serve me and was like weighing me down, where today it's more of like that's something I walked through, and I don't ever want to, one, walk through that, or two, I will never put my children in a position of having to feel that,
Right.
you know, or live with that. But I remember running down and they had to call the ambulance, and the ambulance came. And so it was like moments like that started to happen. We had some next door neighbors that were very well aware of what was going on behind closed doors. And one of them in particular, like, was a psychologist, and he tried to help quite a bit. And so then it grew into this thing of like, when my mom was being weird, I would just run next door and
Right.
hang out next door, you know?
Yeah. Safe place.
Yeah. And then I remember having like a sleepover for like one of my birthdays, and my mom was totally plastered. And then I never wanted to have friends over again. Moments like that, you know what I mean? And like, again, I was 9, 10, 11 years old.
Your home didn't feel like a safe place.
No, absolutely not. I didn't want to have people over because I was starting to have to hide these things, and I didn't want to talk about them either, because when I went to friends' houses, it wasn't happening there, you know? And so it was like, that was also the beginning to like stuffing things.
Right. Compartmentalizing, being guarded and protective of what's happening at home.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, even the nights that like we didn't escape to a motel, like what I would do is like bring my little brother into my bedroom, like because I had a couch in my bedroom, and I'd have him sleep in there. And there was also this beginning to me like protecting and like being a fixer.
Mama bear.
Yeah, I was like nurtured into this role of being a caretaker without realizing that's what I was doing.
Because your mom wasn't capable of being that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did your drinking and or using like start to progress?
So what's wild is like, I think I have like a little bit of a different journey than like most of us who like end up in recovery, in that I didn't drink or use at a young age.
Why do you think that is?
Out of fear.
Yeah, because you saw what it was doing to your mom.
100%. I know that to this day.
Why is it that like when as kids we go through these experiences, especially with like parents or families or whoever is, you know, raising us or caretaking us, wherever they fall short, we have this idea that we will never be like them.
Oh, absolutely.
And not always, but oftentimes we end up being a lot like them inevitably. Do you think it's genetic? Do you think it's nature versus nurture? Like, what do you think it is?
I think it's all of the above, truly. I don't think any of this stuff is like rooted or like related to one specific thing. I think that it's like multiple different factors that like make up who we are.
Right.
And even that like nature versus nurture, like, no, I think it's like both of those things, like the nature of genetics and the nurture, whether it's like of like who you are as the apple not falling too far from the tree, or that like you're like nurtured into these environments. It may have nothing to do with the actual person, but it's like the environments you're in front of. And I think all these different factors play into it.
Right. And you learn coping skills, whether they're good or bad, from the people who are raising you, whether you realize it or not. The adults in your life, the people, you know, taking care of you. As a child, you learn a lot from them based on what they do and how they operate. And that can be, again, for better or for worse.
Absolutely.
And so naturally, when you're in a certain environment, you find yourself starting to rely on the same tools that your family.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's interesting, too, because like having a sibling, like we're only 2.5 years apart, which as children, it seems like a lot. Now it's like I don't even notice a gap, right? But then he also like, he got into like drinking and using at a very young age. And so I want to say he was probably 11 or 12. And like I, at that point was like, you know, 13, 14, 15. And he's like already like selling pot at school. And I like still have never drank or used anything.
You're the good girl.
Yeah, yeah. But I was like almost like naive to a way of like protection, I think too. Like, I remember like him telling my dad, "Oh, that's not mine. I'm holding it for a friend." And I would like defend him for
You're
my
like,
dad.
of course he is.
Because, and like what that came from again is like not wanting to rock the boat inside the four walls we lived in and wanting things to be calm. So even if it meant that I was like probably protecting him in a lie, if it meant keeping my dad calm and him not getting upset, then I'd ride that so hard.
Right.
All I ever wanted was peace in those four walls, whether it was like during the time my mom and dad were together or after they split up. Like, because again, my dad was battling a lot of his own frustration. And, you know, even after they split up, it's like now he's in this position where he's lost the love of his life.
When did he split? When did they split up?
I was about 12 at that point.
So he like dealt with all of this stuff. Excuse me, I'm dying.
Please don't.
So for three years or so, maybe a little bit more, he was dealing with trying to help your mom get sober and trying to save her and keep the family safe before finally.
Right. Yeah. And he does mention that like earlier on in their relationship, like there was definitely signs of like her drinking being an issue.
There's always a sign.
Of course. Like it was always, the drinking was always abnormal, you know, but once it like created chaos within the home and with his children, yeah, it was like a 3-4 year thing. And it was like heavy chaos, right? So yeah, they split up, and like for a little bit, we're doing like a thing where we visit my mom and go to her house, maybe stay the night with like, according to like the custody agreement, but it was less time with her than it was with my dad. And then there were things like we're no longer staying the night in the house because of things like the school calling and like CPS getting involved. That, you know, was not even in my dad's hands. It was in the hands of like people in the community, whether it was people at the YMCA or teachers or coaches or other friends' parents.
Concerned. Right.
That's what happened. That was the road it took. So at that point, we're, you know, now seeing my mom with like a court-assigned monitor, and we're no longer staying the night. I'm at an age where I can make a decision and write a letter to the court that I only want to live with my dad. So, and I did do that. Because that home was like so unsafe. It was, I mean, it was emotionally, mentally, and quite physically unsafe. You know, she would get plastered, and I'd watch her get into it with my brother. And she was bringing men home that like strange she was men. Now, yeah, strange men that she was meeting wherever she was meeting.
Yeah.
You know, and then I was like 13.
Was she still working at this point?
No, not at this point. She lost her license eventually for writing her own prescriptions.
Right.
Yeah.
So mom and dad separate. You're spending less and less time with mom because it's no longer safe or allowed. And at what point do you start to have like a transition where you start to rely on substances? Was it after high school?
My senior year of high school.
Okay.
The second half.
Were you 18 or 17?
Yeah, I had just turned 18, and I had also just moved out of my dad's house.
Where did you move to?
I rented a room from like a family in the area. My dad was remarried at this point, and that situation was like incredibly toxic. I went away for a week to be a camp counselor.
At the YMCA.
At the YMCA. I've always like loved camp and the Y. The Y helped raise me, probably saved me quite a bit, you know, gave me a space to feel safe in.
Right.
So I came home, and I had just turned 18 before leaving for that camp. And when I got home, my belongings and my bed was packed up in the living room. And I called my dad. I'm like, what's going on? His wife at the time had a daughter. So he had a stepdaughter. She and I were 6 months apart. She and I shared a room at this point.
Were you close with her?
Yes and no. Yeah, yes and no. And so I call him. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I thought I was going to get home before you. I'm so sorry. And he's like, I'll be there soon, and I'll explain. But like, just don't worry. And I'm like, no. I'm like, what is happening?
Right.
And he explains to me that he and his wife got in an argument, and she decided that because I was 18, she was going to move into my room to take distance from him, and that because I was 18, I could go figure out where to live on my own. And at this point, like, so much had transpired over those, like, that gap from 13 to 18 as well, that was just more chaos and more madness and unsafe. And
Was his second wife, your stepmom, was she an addict as well, or?
no, but she would get like jealous of my dad spending time with me or my brother. And it was like very strange and very unhealthy.
Yeah.
And you know, he wasn't the healthiest going into that relationship, and I think he saw that relationship as some kind of light, like, oh, this woman loves me and wants me. And it took him away from one, like healing himself, which led him to not like showing up in his best as a father. And I say that way now, because it used to be like,
Fuck him.
fuck this dude.
Yeah.
He fucking abandoned us. And I lived in that for a long time, and which I'll get to. But so yeah, at this point I like start calling some of like the people that I trust in my life, because I'm upset, and I'm like, get me out of this house. You know, I'm a senior in high school. I'm playing sports. I am like the vice president of my class. I get good grades. Like, I'm a good kid. And I work for the YMCA
And it's not
at this
enough.
point. Yeah. And it's not enough. And yet here I am being packed up and put into the living room, told to go figure it out.
Right.
And like, I just like one more time felt not enough, felt abandoned, felt neglected. And I was like, get me out of here.
Right.
Like, get me out of here. And so there was someone in the community who had, their father was elderly, and he previously had like a housekeeper living with him, because it helped him out around the house, and you know, and that way he wasn't alone, and it helped his family, felt better about it. Like, he was functioning and stuff, but
He just needed a little support.
yeah. And so they were like, look, the housekeeper recently moved out. You can move into this house. Like, why don't you help out? Like, you take out the trash, and like gave me like some things to do. And so I finished my senior year of high school by like renting a room locally in the area. And that began like a mad resentment between me and my dad, because I felt like he didn't fight that either. He didn't fight for me to stay. I felt he didn't stand up for me.
I'm sure it brought up these wounds too.
Yes.
From your mom kind of choosing drugs and
yeah.
alcohol.
Drugs,
over you.
alcohol, men, another lifestyle.
Yep.
She had, you know, when I was 14, she left. We didn't hear from her for 6 months. Tells us she's in Las Vegas. And I'm like, what?
Right.
Yeah, it of course brought stuff up for me from like older wounds. You know, because I think that like all those things I mentioned, like being a good kid, I was also doing those things hoping for some like
Validation.
absolutely, like maybe this will get me seen, maybe this will bring love, right? And I think that was a really pivotal thing for me, like moving out while still being like a kid in high school. You know, I haven't even graduated. I didn't even finish like the sports season I was in, and I'm living on my own, you know, and that was like a pivotal time for me. And I think that what that did is it like brought on like my era of like, fuck it to everything and every.
You're like, all this hard work I've put in, it's not worthwhile. It's not getting me the love, attention, and appreciation I want. And I'm feeling all this discomfort, all of this pain, all of this abandonment, all of this rejection. So why am I even putting in the effort?
100%. And so it was like probably 2 weeks later that I drank for the first time, you know? I knew that like I was in this position of like, well.
For the first time in your life?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
18.
Where were you?
At a house party.
Okay,
Like,
naturally.
Yeah, like in Oak Park, which is like a very affluent
Keg
area.
stands.
Oh, yeah. But I was nervous because as soon as I told a few friends that I wanted to drink, it like became a thing.
Did your friends, none of them drank?
No, a lot of them had already like drank, and it became this thing. My nickname in high school was J Grow, and
What does that mean?
because my previous last name is Grossman, and like during that era was when like J Lo was a thing.
Oh yeah.
And so like, dude, it was like a whole thing. All the dudes would call me J Grow. I was good at sports. It'd like cheer me on, like, you know, and so it became this thing. Like I remember like everyone being like, oh, J Grow's gonna drink tonight. And it was like a thing.
Yeah.
Because I was like the DD too, like
Right.
with all my friends. And I was like good about that. I wanted people to call me to be safe. Like people knew, you know? So it became a thing, and then I got nervous. So I was like, can we like go somewhere else where not everyone's watching? So we went out into this car, like this little Honda Civic in the street, and like I drank a cup of Jack and Coke for the first time, you know? And like it just felt like this like warm blanket coming over my body. And like not only was there this like physical thing that I could feel throughout my body that I can like think of today, it like wiped away like anything that felt like anxiety or fear or pain, you know. And it was like that mental warfare that I lived in every fucking day that like to me I thought was normal, which I know now not everyone lives in that.
Right.
Like it was gone.
Right.
Even if it was momentary, it was gone for the rest of the night, you know? And it very quickly became this thing of like, if I do that, I will not feel those things or think about those things. And like, when I say think about those things, you know, there was definitely some like traumatic experience that happened early on in the homes I was in, whether it was like when my parents were together or after they separated. And I know you as my friend, we've talked about this, like, yeah, I was 13 years old when I was like sexually assaulted under my mom's roof.
Right.
And she couldn't help me because when I called out for her, she was knotted out.
Right.
You know? And so it's like, and that I had never told anyone about till I was 25 years old. So here I am at 18 and I have
appearances, keeping up secrets.
Yeah.
No one can know.
No, because I want the community to think like, no, I am that like high school star athlete, vice president, like good kid that like J-Grow that's gonna drive your kids home. Like I was the good friend that like unfortunately came from a broken home, but like I was a good kid.
And you didn't want people to know that you were damaged goods. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that you were, but
No, we relate on a lot of things. Yeah.
that's the way that we think about ourselves and our experiences, and that's why we keep all these secrets, and we have so much shame associated with like the things that have happened to us.
Of course, at 18 years old, I thought that I was damaged goods. Otherwise, like, why would something like that happen under one of my parents' roofs? You know, why would I not have their love and attention at all times when, like, I'm, you know, whether it's like I'm playing in a sports game and like everyone else's parents are there early and like doing all these things and cheering them on, and I'm not sure if if my dad is going to show up that day. You know, and like my mom's gone. That's out of the picture.
Right.
But is he going to show up? I don't know. He may have like a date with his current wife.
Right.
Right? Like, or the girlfriend of the week.
I had
like,
the same experience.
You know, and I didn't know. Or he may be working because he's now like trying to make an income because he's no longer a musician, which today I have a different perspective on being like a single parent today.
Right.
And I have a different perspective on that. But those in that time, my only perspective is just like, I'm not good enough or else someone would be here.
I'm not important. Right.
Yeah.
Did you ever tell your mom or your dad or your family about what happened when you were a teenager?
I told my dad around 25.
And what happened when you told him? How did that come to be? What made you decide to be honest about that?
So that was like in the last year and a half before I got sober. And I was at this point like progressed, you know, okay, at that point from 18, which I will say I also didn't speak to my dad that entirety of that time, from 18 to about 25.
Right.
Out of resentment that I felt very justified in, and anger that I was justified in the way of like no healing had come about. So how could I see any other way? That was the only way I knew to operate. And I was angry. I was hurt. I was sad. Right. And I was like, you have not protected me. You have not been there for me. So stay away while I figure this out on my own. And what happened in that time of me figuring things out on my own is like that drinking progressed. I would try new things. At first it was like smoke some pot. Then it was like people being like, maybe you should see a therapist. And I'm like, okay, that's a decent idea. That therapist saying, maybe see a psychiatrist for this anxiety, and being introduced to things like Xanax or Klonopin, which like, again, was just like a new warm fuzzy blanket. And I'm like, well, if I like, this is great. And I can do this any time of the day and go to work. And then it was like, I could do a lot of it. And then I feel like really good. Right. And so all these things just continue to progress, you know, until I'm like using and drinking in a way that like I have like suicidal thoughts.
Right.
You know, and I get in a fight with a boyfriend that I'm at the age 25 who was a heroin addict. And I was solely with him because he sought me out because he knew that I came from like dealing with those issues, as he would put it. And so I'm not judgmental. And I'm like, wow, he wants me. And he knows that I'm special because I don't judge him. And so what am I going to do?
You are still nurturing.
Yeah, exactly. And what am I going to do? I'm going to love him so hard that he's going to get out of this addiction. I am going to fix him.
So you knew he was a heroin addict.
Absolutely.
When you got into the relationship.
Yeah, going into it. And so, and what that did is it took my drinking, my using, and swept it under the rug.
Because he has the bigger problem.
Right. Because I'm like, well, I don't shoot needles in my arm like he does right now. So, like, I don't have an issue.
Right.
Right.
So you don't have to look at
I don't
yourself.
look like him. I don't look like my mom. I don't look like my brother, who at this point is in and out of rehab, in and out of jail. We don't know where he is. Right. And so, like, I don't have an issue. So it was just more compartmentalizing and like avoidance and the nurturing and like fixing and caretaking. That ended badly because we got in a fight one night because it's like I found out he was using more than he told me he was, and I was like, well, you know what, if you get to use like that, then fuck it. And I, in this fight, like went and downed a bottle of Xanax, and there was 32 Xanax in that bottle.
Wow.
I know that, like, to this day, only people like you and I know how many pills are in the bottle.
Right.
Because we're always keeping track.
Right.
So we know when we need to get more. And I don't know if, like, to this day, like, I don't know if, like, the suicidal ideation, like, I don't know if there was, like, a true attempt in that. I think it was more of a fuck it thing, and me being like, what's the point of anything? If I go, cool. If not, whatever. This is a fuck you in your face because you get to use like that. You know what I mean? But wherever I was at that point, I do know that, like, I was done feeling the way I was feeling. It was definitely a cry for attention. I was not getting it from this man who's a child at the time, right? And it landed me like handcuffed to a hospital bed, and me waking up and then being like, you can't leave here for 72 hours, right? And I was like, okay. And then when those 72 hours were coming to be up, I remember the social worker in the hospital asking me, like, okay, well, who's going to pick you up? Where do you want to go? And that boyfriend checked himself into treatment, and he and I had been living at his mother's house. Like, my life had gotten to the point where, like, I was no longer able to, like, pay my own rent. I decided to sell my car because between he and I, we decided that we didn't need two cars. We could have one, which gave us more money, right? And so I'm like, I have nothing, actually, and I don't know where I want to go.
Is that when you called Dad?
I called Dad when I got to the next spot. So they said, well, look, there is a treatment center that is county funded. And I said, okay, like I have emotional problems, right?
I don't have a drug problem.
No, I just did that because I was upset. But like the way I feel, like I need help. Like I'm not okay. I want to heal this. Whatever that looked like. The conversation probably was like a lot less put together, right? And I said, okay, I'll go to that. And they're like, it's a 2-week program. And so I went to that up in Ventura County. And while I was in there, like I was very clear in the groups that I was not a drug addict. I was there for my emotional problems.
Right. I'm not like you guys.
Yeah. But like I'll go to some of these outside meetings with you for support, right? Like I would, and to get out of the treatment center. Like that was like why I'd go to the meetings. And at that point, talking with like the therapist and the case management, and they, you know, they're asking about what does your support look like, and I'm talking about it. And they're like, well, are you willing to maybe reconnect with your dad? And I said, maybe I should, and just see where he's at. So like the first call I made to him was like during that time. And like shortly after
What was that first call like?
I mean, he was just grateful.
He was just glad to hear from you.
Yeah. He met me with nothing but kindness.
He missed you.
Oh yeah. And what I know now is he had done a lot of work.
Yeah.
Leading up to that point.
Was he still married to his?
No.
Got it.
No. He had been divorced from her at that point for probably like 3 years.
And you had no idea.
I knew through the grapevine.
Right. But you're still angry with him.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, I didn't care. I was like, well, cool. Hope it was worth it.
Right.
Like that was like how I felt in my resentment, you know? No, he met me with nothing but kindness. He didn't know the level of my drinking or using at that point. I don't think I did.
Right.
To be frank.
Still in denial.
Oh, yeah. Like I didn't, 100% denial. But yeah, he met me with nothing but kindness. I had nowhere to go when I got out of there. He was a bachelor. He lived in this like little studio in Thousand Oaks, and he's like, well, I have a couch you can stay on till you figure this out.
Right.
So I did. And, you know, about 2 weeks out of getting out of treatment and staying on his couch, I started using meth. You know, like I was in a situation where it was put in front of me and someone told me it would take away my anxiety. And I was like, cool, yeah, I'll do some. And she called it speed. Yeah, she called it speed. So in my mind, I justified it of like, this is fancy and clean. It can't be that bad. Because like leading up to this point, I'm like, okay, well, I won't do heroin. Opiates by pill form is cleaner. That's fine. Like I just justified everything, right? And like if she called it speed and she was a single mom living in Agora Hills, I'm like, well, this isn't that bad.
Must be fine.
Right. And all she said was like, I do use something else that like takes away all that anxiety you talk about that's like much better than everything else. And I was like, okay, what is it? Because she and I would smoke pot together, and she's like 10 years older than me. And she's like, it's speed. I'm like, cool, can I try some? Like, and it was as simple as that, right? Which, like, I know now through, like, doing step work, doing a lot of therapy, and being in the professional space we're in, like, all that was like, I had no control over if someone was going to put something in front of me, I was going to do it.
Right.
At this phase.
Exactly.
For years leading up to this. And that's how I did all the things I did, you know, and tried all the things I tried, is someone put it in front of me and told me the effect it gave them, and I'm like, let's go. And that's it, you know?
And so did this just progress your addiction and throw you for a loop over the next year?
Oh yeah, for the next year, until like what that looked like was like at first of like, oh, I didn't need to take any home with me. She and I would like stay up late making jewelry in her garage and selling it on Etsy. And I'm
Why
like,
is
this
it always a garage when you're doing meth?
Oh, and we like decked that garage out to be so vibey. At least we thought it.
Right.
When like in reality, if
Looked like a tweaker
if
den.
you and I walked into that now, we'd be like, oh no, you know.
Nothing's finished. 10,000 projects half completed.
But like so many dimmed lights and candles and like pieces of artwork that I half did and like thought I was like an artist, you know. And yeah, we were like selling jewelry on Etsy, and we were gonna make it.
Wow.
You know. And like what happened next is like it progressed to the point that like now I have to have it on me in my home and in my space at all times, in my cars, you know. Then I like got my first arrest, like, you know, like I just kept hitting all these not yets in this year. You know, now I'm doing a drug I said I would never do. I lost my job, so I'm working for her essentially as her assistant because she gets paid a lot of alimony, and that's it, right? And then I'm pulled over because it's like 2 a.m. and I'm driving home, and I'm driving erratically because I'm fucking high, you know? But I convince the officer at first that like I was babysitting and I'm so tired, and that's where I'm on my way home from. And this poor guy, he was like for sure new to the field and probably the same age as me. Like I fully convinced him. And then he's like, why don't you pull off and go splash some water on your face before you get home? And in doing that, he has to look at my license and realizes that my license is suspended because I haven't renewed my driver's license and paid off some tickets. And I really had no idea because I had this thing at the time where like I didn't open my mail, right?
I remember the mail is the worst thing ever. It's the most debilitating thing when you're in the midst of
I
your
probably
addiction.
hadn't opened my mail in over a year. And yeah, when you're in your addiction, I'm not looking at that. I don't want to know what bills are in there.
You know there's bills, you know there's notices, and it's the anxiety of not opening it builds, but also...
Oh, yeah. Dude, the fear of the mailbox, like very real 100%. Thing, was also like one of the things on my 4th step under my fears, like probably number 2, mailbox. Like, and so, yeah, of course I didn't know that my license was suspended. So because of that, he has to search my car, and I'm like, okay. And then he finds a backpack, and there's
paraphernalia
for sure. And I'm like, that's not mine. I don't know how that got there. Right. Go through the classic stuff we go through. So I got my first arrest that night. She bailed me out the next morning. And 5 days later, she and I got arrested together for a commercial burglary.
Wow.
Which I had never done. I had never stolen things.
You're a great criminal.
Yeah, clearly.
The ones that get caught are not so good.
Dude, I know. And it was like loss prevention at a Kohl's department store, like the classic move. But the truth is too, is that like in that, I was like truly in like between that first arrest till then, I like took off in those 5 days in a way that I never had, to where I was in this almost like blackout through meth, which was like kind of hard to access,
psychosis,
you know, like exactly. It was more of a psychosis than anything. And like, part of it was like, oh my God, I got to this point where I got arrested. I have no job.
You have nothing left.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
Like, I have no car. I'm living in this apartment that, like, I don't even know how I'm going to really pay my rent. She says she'll help me cover it. And it was just like a downward spiral. And the second arrest happened. They do that thing where they catch you in the parking lot, not inside.
Right.
They separate us. They start talking to both of us. And I, like, break down and kind of come to at one point while sitting on the hood of the cop car. And realize, like, even right now, like, it's kind of like my first drink. Like, I can, like, viscerally remember this moment. And looking around and being like, I have a problem. Like, because this isn't me.
Right.
Like, for sure. And so I look at the police officer. I said, excuse me, sir. And I'm like, I need some help. Right. Like, clearly I have a problem. He chuckled and was like, well, I'm glad you have that awareness, but you're still going to jail tonight, you know? She and I, like, are in the booking area together. She has money to her dad, calls her lawyer, all this stuff. And I'm like, whatever. Like, I think I'm going to bail myself out this time, which I do. We leave there. And from there, I decide, like, to not talk to her for a few days because I was just like, this is not good. Right. And I'm not going to stop. It is. And I'm not going to stop my meth habit yet because I can't. But now, because I don't have her to get it from, I'm doing things like, because this is before we had apps, right? So I'm doing things like going on to, like, the online dating sites like plentyoffish.com and somehow connecting with any dude that I saw that I was like, he for sure has drugs.
Right.
Right. So now I'm doing things like engaging with these men to get them to come over, leading them on to think that something else is going to happen and that I'm into them. But no, I just want them to get me high and then get the fuck out. I got myself in some weird situations with men too that, like, were not super safe at all. But, like, I knew how to work it and I knew what I was doing. And so at this point, I have friends that come over one morning because there was one night where, like, I didn't have enough drugs on me, but I had a lot of medication from that little, like, hospital stay I did a few weeks prior, like Seroquel and gabapentin and who knows what else. And
comfort meds.
Yeah, but I decide, like, I'm going to take a ton of them.
Right.
Because I was so uncomfortable.
You're an addict.
And I'm coming down and I don't have enough meth, you know? And in this, I call one of my friends who was an EMT at the time. This time, I think, was a real cry for help. I may have not realized it in the moment. And I call him and I'm like, hey, I'm okay, by the way.
Right.
Because when I was in that hospital stay and reached out to my dad called some of my friends that he knew I'd been friends with forever. One of them you got to meet recently.
Yeah.
Like Kayla and her sister and a few of my other friends that I had this, like, lifelong friendship with. And he knew that I was still connected with them and was like, Jenna's not okay, you know? So they had already been worried about me, knew I was in that treatment. I call one of them, this dude, and I'm like, I took all these pills. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, listen, I'm not trying to kill myself. Like, I like make it really clear, like, don't worry. It's not like what happened 3 weeks ago or whatever the time was. It's different this time. I think it was, like, actually like 4 months ago. Yeah. I'm like, it's different. I just was super uncomfortable and I was trying to help my anxiety. But now I'm realizing, like, am I going to be okay or do I need to go get my stomach pumped? And he's like, wait, where are you? And I'm like, no, I'm at home. It's okay. And he's like, okay, well, what did you take and how much? And basically he keeps me on the phone and then passes the phone to another friend. And I'm like, oh shit, you're with her? So now the secret's out too, you know? And so in that, within 10 minutes, there's a knock on my door and there's paramedics at my door. And I was like, oh my God, which of course that happened. I called another paramedic, you know?
Yeah.
He knew what to do. So they took me, they pumped my stomach. And I will tell you that night I had, like, this out of body experience of that, like, coming down meth psychosis that was insane. Like, felt like I saw myself crawling out of my own body.
Is this the beginning of where your recovery journey starts?
It's where it starts. Recovery journey, sobriety, no.
Sobriety. No.
Recovery journey, yes.
Okay.
The next morning, because I was released from the hospital, and 4 of those friends showed up at my doorstep and sat down with me. I was pissed at them, and I was like, you don't know what I just went through. Why are you here?
Right.
I cussed them out and yelled at them. God
forbid people that love you come and show up and say that they're concerned.
Well, right. And what's funny is that my first reaction is like, fuck you guys. You didn't live the life I lived. You don't even know the half of it. Mm-hmm. You could never understand. But like to the point of what you just mentioned, like, right, my whole life I was searching and wanting to feel loved and taken care of and
now
seen.
You get it.
And it was like after the anger, and they broke me down a little bit, and they broke me down by only continuing to tell me they loved me.
Right.
They didn't judge me, any of it. And some of these friends, like I said, at this point I had been friends with 20 years.
Wow.
You know, and all they met me with was like, we know we don't understand your life, and we know you're in pain, and we can't fix it, but we want to help, and we want to help you figure out how to fix it.
Right.
And it was the first time in my life I truly felt seen and I truly felt loved.
Unconditionally, right?
Oh, I was a mess. I was sitting in there cussing them out, telling them for the first time, no, guys, I actually been smoking meth.
Right.
I know you thought I did a little.
So you're finally getting honest with people who care.
Because I'm like, I know you thought I stopped drinking after I went to treatment, which I did a little bit.
But I just started doing meth.
But I just started using meth, and it's kind of weird to drink while you're using meth. So like, and they were like, oh, you know, and they're like, well, hey, listen, Ryan, who was another friend of ours, and he was sober at the time, but he lived up north. But they're like, he's driving down here right now, and he's gonna take you to a meeting. And I was like, no, okay, listen, I know.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I'm like, I know that this little meth phase was bad, but I'm going to clean it up. And they're like, okay, but like Ryan's going to take you to a meeting. And I was like, I don't need to go there. My mom is the type of person who needs to go there. But I went that night, and that was like my first time going to a recovery meeting for myself, not for someone else.
Right.
I was not convinced that I was an alcoholic. I was not convinced that I was a drug addict. At that time, I think I walked into those rooms to make them feel better.
And you had a little tiny bit of willingness.
I did, though. Exactly. Because I went, you know, and I cried all over the meeting. And for some reason, I got people's phone numbers. And the next day I went back. And I was not sober. I told people I was sober. In the beginning, I didn't believe that me taking my Klonopin that was prescribed to me or drinking
was unsober.
Yeah, or drinking when I went home was not being sober, because like my problem at the time was meth.
Right.
And I like truly, and I felt
that.
so justified in it. I was so justified in it. You know, I did things in those rooms like intentionally to separate myself from the other people in the rooms. I would raise my hand in those rooms and say, hi, I'm Jenna and I'm human. Because I wanted people to know I wasn't like them.
Because you're different.
I'm different.
Right.
I would sit on the
Chronically
floor.
unique.
Oh, yeah. I would sit on the floor in meetings at that time to be grounded. And I would tell people, no, I feel more spiritual down here. When it's like, no, dude, I just wanted people to look at me.
Right.
I wanted some kind of it was so performative.
Right.
And if I knew how to do things well, it was perform. Right? Because even when I performed in the early years, sure, it was for good reasons, but like I could perform to get your attention.
Well, it's a process, right? Taking off the masks and the identities and the facades that we've created. It's not something that happens overnight.
No.
At least not in my experience. It's like, it was, for me, it was very slow and incremental, like really showing up in an authentic, genuine way. And the beauty of that is every time I was just a little bit more honest about who I am and like what I was and where I've been, it gave me a little glimmer of hope when people would receive that well. And I was like, oh, I can just
like they didn't shame me for it.
I could just be me.
Yeah.
Good, bad, ugly.
Well, that was my thing that I always talk about, is that like no matter how I showed up to those rooms, whether I was high, whether I was drunk, whether I was dishonest, whether I was honest, no matter which one of those, I left there, and every single time somebody, if not multiple people, said, keep coming back.
Yeah.
And that was the only message I was met with ever.
Right.
There's a dear friend of ours who you know, who works in the space that we work in, and he grew up in the same area. he would drive me to and from meetings all the time. And he would like walk into my apartment after and be like, wow, it smells like weed in here. And I was like, okay, yeah, my roommate. You know, and to this day, he and I laugh about, like, he knew that it was,
of course.
And he's like, dude, I knew you were high when I would pick you up. Do you not? He goes, come on, you know, today you reek of weed when you smoke weed, right?
Right.
So I would get into his car. You know when you're like using and you think no one knows,
right?
Which like now it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And like,
you
but
think
I would
you're keeping
but
big secret.
The cool thing is he still took me,
and he never said anything.
And what
right.
that did for me was it gained me like access to this glimmer of hope in like what fellowship was too, community, right? And I felt so isolated for so long because I pushed away those other friends that were normies because I didn't want them to see what I was doing. I didn't want them to know the pain I was in. And so what happened was for about 4 months, because it was the beginning of March till the end of May, I kept going to those meetings. And in May, I was just in this position where I had this day, I was super upset, super activated, emotionally triggered, whatever you want to call it, where I like one more time said, fuck it, you know? And I knew where my roommates, she was out of town. I knew where all her cocaine was. I found a little baggie of meth because like I used to do this thing where I thought it was funny to hide it somewhere and then go look for it later. It was like this funny game I played with myself, which is just weird. Like, what? But like if you use meth, you get it. Like we do weird things. And I did all her cocaine, did a little bit of meth. There was alcohol in the freezer. I drank all of it. I think I crushed up some weight loss pills and snorted them. Like I was just like, we are going to do anything and everything. When I ran out of alcohol, I went across the street to the gas station and bought 2 Four Locos. Like, can I tell you, like the fact that my last drink was Four Loko, cringe. Yeah. Like, I'm like, come on, girl. I couldn't have gone out on like some like whiskey on the rocks. You know what I mean? But like, that's where I was at. Like, and it was like 2 a.m. So that was all I had access to. Right. But what happened for me is I did all of that and I felt nothing different. And I had this narrative and language that sounded different for the first time in my life. And I like contribute to that, to the like the messages I would hear in those 12-step rooms of recovery from people that literally told me to keep coming back. And their messages and their stories of doing exactly what I had just been doing and being so convinced that I was not dependent on drugs and alcohol, and so convinced that drugs and alcohol and something outside of myself was the solution to something going on inside here and up here. And for the first time in my life, I had this like what I think we call like a moment of clarity. And I was like, I did all these drugs. I drank all this alcohol and
it's not working anymore.
I don't feel different. And the only message I'm hearing right now are these messages I heard in those rooms from those people who I see that they today have a smile on their face. They have a car that they pay for. They have a roof over their head that they pay for. They have a job that they enjoy. And they're smiling and I believe them. I actually don't think it's bullshit anymore. Because when I first met them in those rooms, I was like, this is fake.
And so at this point, your journey begins. Right?
That's where like my sobriety journey began. I called the woman that I had asked to be my sponsor that I was dishonest with for 4 months. It was 2 a.m. She answered. Thank God. I was honest with her and she laughed. And she goes, okay, well, do you want to do this? I said, yeah, because it's the last thing I haven't done. She said, cool, go drink some water, lock your front door, and I'll pick you up at 6:30 in the morning. And I was like, oh my God, it's 2 a.m. But I said, okay. And I went to a 7 a.m. meeting, and I, for the next 30 days, like went to meetings multiple times a day. I did anything she asked me to because I was so desperate. I was looking at I was dealing with court cases from those 2 arrests. And I was willing to do anything. And she asked me, she asked me, how willing are you? And I said, I will do whatever it takes. And she goes, okay, like buckle up. To the point where there's times when we were in the car and I would be talking or crying and she would look at me and be like, are you done? And I was like, what do you mean?
Enough of the victim.
Yeah. And that's what and I needed that. She goes, I know that stuff is painful and that is real. And that And that is true. And I validate your feelings in that. But if you want to do something different, you're going to shut up and you're going to listen.
So how does life look today?
How life looks today. One, I cleared all those court cases through doing the work, and it was a part of like me making things right. I don't have any kind of legal things hanging over my head. In fact, they've fallen off at this point because it's almost 12 years later. Part of what that looked like is I had to do time in sobriety. I was sentenced time. I walked through some health issues at the beginning. I had, with 50 days sober, I all of a sudden realized I had stuff going on. And long story short, I had pancreatitis, which like, lo and behold, I was like, oh, I remember, like, I'm not an alcoholic. It was just the drugs. And here I am. So I spent I walked through that. I was like hospitalized for 3 weeks. Came out of that. I had 2 weeks in between that and remanding myself and turning myself in. And I did about 45 days in jail. Came out and I, was willing again to like follow suggestion. And so I got a get well job the first year and I walked to and from that job. When I was about a year sober, I applied to work in the behavioral health space and waited to get a car until I got that job. So I knew that I had the money coming in and I've built a life. And, I got married in sobriety and had 2 beautiful children who are my entire world. And what that has done for me, showing up as a sober mother, has allowed me to heal some of that inner child stuff in me that I thought like was never going to be healed because I had done all the step work multiple times. I had done multiple trauma therapy avenues and all of those things, like it helped. But nothing has helped like showing up as a sober woman and a sober mother to a little boy and a little girl. Like that is an irreplaceable therapeutic avenue that I could have never even known was going to take place.
Breaking the cycle.
Absolutely. And that's why. And, I've walked through a divorce in sobriety and that's challenging, but like it's not impossible.
Do hard things, right?
Exactly.
Like doing hard things and coming out the other end of it stronger, better, also still sober. Really, it builds self-esteem.
That's the thing. Like I was just talking with someone else that like what I believe builds self-esteem other than just like esteemable acts is also self-care. And like learning what true self-care is doing the hard things. It is getting vulnerable with people. It's picking up the phone when you're 6 years sober, going through a divorce, and you're thinking about drinking for the first time, right? And it's being honest about that, not pretending like that's not happening. And then doing the things that are suggested to you and walking through it and redirecting your attention to be of service and pulling yourself out of it, and like getting up and going to the gym every day and going to work every day and getting up to mom while you're walking through that. Like pulling yourself together as a mother, is incredibly challenging because you show up in a way to make sure they're okay and you make sure they're taken care of first. And you don't want them to ever know about how broken you are. But what that has done is in turn has healed me,
Broken you were, not are.
Right. And it's like whether that's with my children, whether it's with other women that I get to show up for today that are walking through hard things, whether it's for people I encounter in the behavioral health space that are walking through hard things, but getting to show up and continue to give that away to them allows me to stay super grounded and keep things super simple. So the self-care leads to self-esteem,
self-love, right?
and like what that is lead to is self-love. Exactly. And like I no longer have to seek being validated or seek being loved, because it comes from something within, which, it may have taken me almost 30 years to learn that. But like,
we're here, baby.
But that is a piece. Yeah. That is a piece of mind, right? Like we hear a lot of people talk about like having a life beyond their wildest dreams, right? In recovery. And sure, I agree with that we obtain that. But for me, it's not about that, because it's not about like the paid bills and, you know, the roof over our head, and which all those things are important.
It's internal.
But for me, it's having a peace with beyond my wildest dreams. To like truly walk into situations that are challenging and uncomfortable and do hard things and not be affected by it mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. That is something I never thought would happen or was real or obtainable. You know, to like go to bed at night, no matter what the day held, you know, and have genuine peace. That's real. That's something that I want every day over any kind of car I can go out and buy. You know, I don't care about those things. The gift of having peace, you know, and being able to exude that to the people in my life around me, you know, I believe that today, like, that's my life's purpose, is to go and carry that peace out and carry some message of hope and be, you know, a messenger of hope to the people who are like who are stuck in that place of more beyond the drugs and the alcohol, like the depression and the anxiety and the pain and the fear.
Yeah.
I want to pull people out of that. And yeah, recovery from drugs and alcohol is a part of that. But we can access so much more.
Well, I think we will wrap up with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Jenna,
for having me.
Your message is so inspirational. I love you so much as a friend. You are phenomenal. And I'm so glad we were able to have you on.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. If you enjoyed the show, please like, comment, subscribe. We want to hear from you. And I hope everyone enjoyed.